just a few moments. Heat 19 are getting themselves ready and lined up there now. In yellow will be Hans Nielsen. Hans Nielsen, well, looking to try and pull something off from the outside of the grid. He's up against the clock at the moment to get himself out there. We saw what happened to Rickardson earlier on in the year. You don't make it on time, you're out of there quick. So we can go back to our track commentators now, Peter Collins and Tony Millard. Tony, this one's warming up a fraction, I feel.
It's certainly warming up, but as they say, mud, glorious mud. There's nothing quite like it for warming the blood, and that's what we have here. Heat 19, Mark Loram in red. Peter Karlsson goes from gate 2 in blue. What a night Mark Loram's having. He's carrying all before him. We saw him in league action this week. We know that in the last 4 meetings at home for Poole, he hasn't dropped a point for an opponent. He's the form rider in Britain at the moment, and he's the form rider here at Vojens. That man in white is Henrik Gustafsson, who got here by finishing 3rd in Heat 17. I must tell you though, it's guts or glory here in this one, Heat 19. The first 2 riders go through to the semi-finals. The last 2 are eliminated, and that's what we face here with Mark Loram on the inside. Peter Karlsson from gate 2. The Swede Henrik Gustafsson goes from gate 3. And the Dane, the Professor, Hans Nielsen, could be this be his farewell to World Champions in Speedway. If he finishes other than in the first 2, it will be bye-bye to the Professor. The last lecture will be over, but maybe he can produce something. This could be a memorable day for Hans Nielsen, or it may be one he'll want to forget. Away they go, Heat 19. Nielsen makes it from the outside. An unfavoured gate, but look at the Professor. He's picked it up. He's in front. He doesn't want to say farewell easily. In second place is Mark Loram. Loram is chasing him all the way. There goes Hans Nielsen in front, followed by Mark Loram. Gustafsson is back in 3rd place. Disappointment for Peter Karlsson, which had helped Chris Louis. But what a ride by Hans Nielsen. He could be the first to win it from the outside. And that's a surprise. The track is wet. The Professor continues to teach the PC.
That's right, but just look at Mark Loram. Mark's been all over the back there of Hans Nielsen, but Mark probably realises that this second place is good enough to take him into the top 8 and into the semi-finals. This is great news for Mark because Henrik Gustafsson now in white is dropping back, but Hans Nielsen out in front is putting on a great show now in his last ever GP.
A tremendous ride by Hans Nielsen. We know now that he will make the last 8. We know now that this is not the farewell ride. And we know now that Hans Nielsen is going to take the checkered flag. Ahead of Mark Loram in 3rd place in blue is Peter Karlsson. And that will count towards helping Chris Louis to qualify. But Hans Nielsen, he's not going to give in easily. He's not going to give up easily. He's in the top 8 from this Grand Prix. And Hans Nielsen, we have not seen the last ride by the Professor in Grand Prix action yet. He finished ahead of Mark Loram, Peter Karlsson and Henrik Gustafsson. The last 2 are eliminated, but Hans Nielsen and Mark Loram continue their battle for glory. The action here, it may be muddy, it may be wet, it may be unpleasant, but some of the racing now is top draw.
Yeah, that was a fantastic ride from Hans Nielsen, but also brilliant from Mark Loram. That's Hans Nielsen there making the start, but when we get to the first corner, on the outside of him, Peter Karlsson there in the blue helmet lifts right in the middle of the turn, makes a big mistake, and that allows Mark Loram to come zooming through on the inside to follow Hans Nielsen. And basically when only 2 qualify from this heat, basically you've got to be in the first 2, and Mark Loram did just that with Hans Nielsen. Hans is riding very, very determinedly. We can see the start here again. Now Peter Karlsson in the blue makes quite a good start there, leading into the first turn. Hans Nielsen's come from the outside position, but there Peter Karlsson lifts, throws away that lead.